Her words sliced through the stillness, laced with a sharpness unfit for a conversation between partners. "You'd fall apart without me," she stated coldly. "In mere days you'd be utterly lost. You're nothing by yourself." Her tone was even, her contempt carrying all the force needed without raising her voice. It was a Thursday night when I walked through the door, still dressed in the suit I'd worn since dawn. She didn't ask about my day, her gaze fixed on the soft light of her phone. Without looking up, she issued her command. "I want you gone tonight." I asked why, not from confusion but to hear the excuse she'd weave. "You're too ordinary, too safe. You'll never be more than a timid nobody," she said, her words polished as if rehearsed. Perhaps they were. I stood there, hands in my pockets, my face a blank slate. Beneath it, a cold resolve, sharper than rage, began to form. "Fine," I replied and left. The silence in the car wasn't heavy with grief. It was alive with calculation. She expected me to collapse, to plead, to cling to the version of myself she believed she'd molded. She didn't realize her timing was peculiar. 2 weeks before the quarterly board session, 3 weeks before the merger would be announced. Nor did she know I wasn't merely a pawn in the system. For years, she'd crafted a narrative where I was the unaware spouse, grinding away at a mundane job. She never asked which office, never wondered why I set my own schedule. I'd allowed her that illusion. It served a purpose. But now, her words lingered. The venom in her voice, the way her eyes darted to her phone mid-sentence. Someone was waiting on the other side. Before sunrise the next day, I was at the office, met by the familiar nod of the security guard. My office door opened to the reassuring scent of polished wood and quiet authority. I began piecing together the evidence. Accessing her phone records was straightforward, thanks to a favor owed by the telecom provider. There it was, a number called repeatedly during lunch breaks and late nights when I was immersed in work. I didn't need a name to grasp the situation, but I wanted the full picture. The man was a mid-level consultant in acquisitions, someone I'd approved for hiring months ago. They'd met at a corporate gala, one of those events she dismissed as dull obligations. Her bank statements showed hotel charges, paid from her personal account, never touching our joint one. She'd been careful. Not careful enough to cover her tracks, but enough to avoid my funds. I kept my composure, stuck to my routine, offered polite nods when needed, and made no sudden moves. Each morning, she woke expecting a desperate message, a plea for forgiveness. Instead, she received nothing. On the third night, I overheard her on the phone, her voice bright with certainty. "He'll reach out soon. He can't survive without me," she told someone, her confidence unshaken. She had no idea. The merger meeting arrived, the boardroom alive with executives, consultants, and her new companion. I took my seat at the head of the table. She entered, her hand resting lightly on his arm, laughing at some remark he'd made. Then her gaze found me. Her smile faltered. "Mr. Hale," a director said, "shall we begin?" Her lips parted, silently forming Mr. Hale. As if the name were unfamiliar. I ignored her presence. My voice remained steady as I led the discussion on profits, expansion, and partnerships. Each word I spoke built an unseen wall around her. When the meeting ended, she stayed seated, her face pale, while he avoided my eyes entirely. I slid a folder across the polished table toward her. Phone records, bank statements, hotel receipts, dates circled in red. Her lips parted, but no sound emerged. We stood alone in the glass-walled room. The city stretching out below, vast and uncaring. "You knew," she whispered, her voice barely audible. I met her gaze. "I hired him." The words hit her like a blade, sharp and deliberate. "You," she stammered, struggling to steady her breath. "Why didn't you say anything?" "Because I don't waste words on those who've already condemned me." Her hands shook as she reached out, not with affection but with desperation. "We could still." I stepped back, leaving the folder on the table like a monument to her mistakes. Her phone buzzed against the glass, his name flashing on the screen. The same man now facing scrutiny for breaching his contract. "You think walking away makes you the winner?" she spat, her voice cracking. I didn't answer. There was no need. That night, her calls came without pause. The first time, I watched the screen light up in my hand. The second, I let it ring unanswered. By the fifth, The sound was almost comical. The next morning, her messages shifted from anger to unease. By midday, she was begging. By evening, she wrote, "Please, I didn't understand." But she had understood. She'd just bet on the belief that I needed her more than she needed me. Her calls faded into silence, unanswered. True strength doesn't come from shouting, from proving a point, or from retribution. It comes from walking away, letting the other person's world crumble in the flames they sparked. I left her in the ruins of her own creation, and never looked back.